Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this Netwealth Practice Management webinar, our series designed to help wealth professionals discover new opportunities to enhance their business. My name is Liam and I'm part of the marketing team here at Netwealth. And today we're delighted to have Steve Crawford, the founder of the Advice Movement, joining us to share how you can better attract, retain and provide advice to Gen X and Y clients. Before I hand over the controls, I'll just need to run through some quick housekeeping items. There is one CPD point allocated for attending this webinar. To receive this CPD point, you will need to have watched at least 30 minutes of the session. The CPD details will be emailed to you within the next week or a week of this presentation concluding. The webinar is being recorded, and in the CPD email, you will also receive a link to the recording of the session along with the slides. If there's anything you would like to ask Steve today, please do so via the question tab in the on the taskbar on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will endeavour to answer as many as we can at the end of his presentation. And if you wish to share anything about this webinar on social, we ask you to please include hashtag NetwealthInvest or tag us at NetwealthInvest. A little bit about us. Nearing our 20th year, Netwealth is an ASX-listed company who provide an online platform to support financial advisors with a wide range of financial products and services to help manage their clients' investments and superannuation. So partner with us, an award-winning platform to start running the business the way you want to. Some of our key features include a market-leading advisor and client portal, a mobile app to help you and your clients access key info on the go, a wide range of investment options such as managed accounts, plus advanced transaction tools such as automatic ROA generation and cash settings, a suite of detailed reports that can be tailored to you, your clients and business needs, and access to unique insights designed to help you grow your business. Now on to our speaker. I have the pleasure of introducing Steve Crawford, who is the founder of the Advice Movement, which is a group of advice leaders who are passionate about 21st century financial advice models and are willing to let you watch what they do with their clients, teach you how to do it yourself, and offer to coach you along the journey. He is also CEO of Experience Wealth, a business that deals exclusively with Gen X and Y clients. So without further ado, Steve, please take it away.
Thanks, Liam. Hey, everybody. Liam's just giving me control now, and I'm used to having the camera on, so it's a little bit weird not looking at my own head while I'm doing this stuff. But and you'll have to excuse me. I'm at the tail end of week 3 of the flu. I am not sick, so Liam's happy that I'm actually not sick anymore. But my annoying little tickle cough is going to go, so I've got some water, and hopefully I don't cough everywhere through this. So Liam's promised that he's going to allow you guys to ask questions as we go, but we're going to have time at the end for questions as well. And I'm really excited to be doing this. Some of you might have seen me do a version of this presentation probably about 4 years ago. Actually, I think it was about 3 years ago. I've updated it. A lot of the stuff is new, especially relating to the Experience Wealth side. Obviously, our current financial planning business, soon to be exclusively money coaching only and not financial planning, and I'll talk about that. I think any of you that have seen me present before or know me in general, I tell it like it is, so there's no point pretending that we are doing stuff that we're not doing and vice versa. But today, really from an XY point of view, it's about helping you understand, I think, the key elements to effectively what is the largest market, the largest advisable and currently not being advised market in Australia, if not in the world. So before we do that and get into the nuts and bolts of what actually goes into your Gen X/Y advice offer, let's actually understand a little bit more about the X's and Y's, because I still think the industry thinks that they're all kids. But the reality from an X and Y point of view now is some of them are actually a lot older than what you think. So I'm a Gen Xer. I am 40 and I'm a cusper, so I'm halfway in between the X's and the Y's. But look, there's 100 different versions of the date, but largely we've got our X's, that should be, not our Y's. You can see clearly presentations is my skill set and typos is not. So in the version we sent through to you, that will say Gen X. Gen X's are 40 to 54, and our Y's are 25 to 39. So it's not like especially the Y's aren't kids anymore. I think that was one of the biggest misconceptions, is Gen Y's were too young for advice. As I sit with you today, the average experienced wealth client age is 37. Our oldest client is 52, about to turn 53. And our average new client age is 32. So, you know, we're smack bang with new clients in the Ys, and we've got the X's as clients that, you know, they're in there as well in terms of that average age and moving further up. So it's definitely a huge part of the market. When I bring this slide up, and I've done this before, it tends to put everything into context. So if you believe our friends at Kronos and Galaxy Research, by 2021, Gen Y is going to make up 50% of the Australian workforce, growing to 75% by 2025. Now, that's not including the Gen X's, that's just the Ys. So clearly, these two markets combined are, if not already, very, very soon going to be the largest market for financial advice, I think, in the country. So it means we've got to actually have a value proposition, and we've got to, excuse me, we've got to have an offer that is valuable and relevant to them, not just recycle our existing financial planning offers that have worked for their parents, being the baby boomers and the retirees. We can't just rehash that and expect that it's going to work. So what I want to do first is go and find out why these guys and girls actually don't get advice in the first place, because the vast majority of the advised population, even though Gen X's and Y's represent a huge chunk of it, the vast majority of the X and Y population don't actually have financial advisors now. So my main question is, if not, why not? I love when ING Direct did this piece of research, and I begged them to do it again. But it's interesting, when I tried to update this for 2020, this is the most recent piece of data that I could find that was significant enough to be able to use around Gen X and Gen Y when it comes to financial advice. So we're probably going to have to take it as a given that the data still holds true. Now, in 2016, we didn't have a Royal Commission. So when you hear some of the reasons why they don't get advice, just add that into the background for context as well. So these are the top 10 reasons for not seeking financial advice. And there's 4 that I'm going to pick on in particular, because I think what they do is they actually paint a really strong picture as to why they're not doing it. So orange was, my financial situation doesn't warrant it. Pink is, I'm not convinced of the value that a financial advisor can add. Green is, I'll get around to it when I get older. And then that sort of real weird yellowy, sort of yellowy greeny color in the middle was, I don't trust a financial advisor. Now, again, I said this was pre-Royal Commission. So you can use your own judgment on whether or not those bars have shifted. But when I put all of this together, what it says to me is Gen X/Y first and foremost believe that financial advice is still heavily weighted and heavily anchored in superannuation and insurance, and in particular superannuation and insurance product advice. Their financial situation doesn't warrant it, which says to me that these guys think that the financial advisor that they go and talk to only wants to talk to them if they're in a financial situation that they can help. So if you think about it, with the average ages and the average account balances size, which are very, very small, I think they've drawn a straight connection and gone, if I go and see a financial advisor, all they're going to talk to me about is first and foremost superannuation, maybe investments and retirement. You then flow through and go, well, and because of that, from a pink point of view, they're going to charge me fees to do it. And a lot of this, I haven't brought up any of the research around what the average Aussie wants to pay from a fee point of view, what the average financial advisor charges. But if you put the two together, clearly they're not going to value something if they think it's heavily anchored towards retirement planning advice or super advice if that's not what they want. Green adds into that because nobody wants to think about retirement until they're in their 50s. So they're going to get around to it later. And the elephant in the room is potentially that they don't trust the person that's actually giving them the advice. So at the top, we've got a bit of a problem that we have to actually try and solve for, which is how do we fix what we're actually giving them now, or the perception of what the advice is that they're going to get from us. Next thing we've got to do is we've got to have a look at what do they actually deem to be investment or wealth management or financial advice, and where are their products now. So if financial advice is defined as advice around financial products, what financial products do Gen Ys in particular have? So for this one, we've gone to the KPMG Banking on the Future report. They did it 3 years in a row. Clearly, I was the only person downloading and using the data because they stopped. So we're still working off 2017 data, but there was consistencies across 15 and 16. And the thing that we noted in that data is Gen Ys, when they think about their investments, 75% of that is sitting in a savings account. Yes, there's a few shares, a little bit of property, but look at the managed funds and the other wealth products. Next to nothing. Now, let's have a look at where those banking products are. And this one's a little bit hard to see, so you might have to go full screen on this one, guys. Let's have a look at where those banking products are and how those Gen Ys feel about the experience that they're actually having. And now I'm going to start to help you understand why the issue of not doing something, of not having an offer for the Gen Ys in particular, not so much the Gen X's, but definitely for the Gen Ys, why, if we don't start to build an offer collaboratively and collectively as an industry, why we might start to get cut out. So this is customer experience from Gen Y professionals' biggest pain point with their bank. 42% of them said the experience was the issue. They take too long to process anything. Their opening hours are standard working hours. So yes, that's them talking about a bank. But who thinks that when a Gen Y is actually dealing with a financial services provider, that the view of they take too long to do things and the opening hours are standard working hours is something that the Gen Y reserves the judgment purely around banks? Because I don't. I think they treat all of us exactly the same way, which is why it's driving them to consider other alternatives. So this is some Aussie data. I'm going to show you some US data in a second, which might scare you a little bit more. Don't worry, we're going to get to the end where I'm going to show you an offer that what we do with our clients that hopefully combats all of this stuff that you guys can learn from as well. And I know hopefully Liam's put something in the chat box, which is a link to a template presentation that we do with our clients called a goal planning session. It's a PowerPoint deck. It's the Experience Wealth one. You guys can go there, download it and use it. Obviously just change the disclaimers and the branding, but you know, I'm giving you a template to be able to work with. And I'll talk about the goal planning session in a little bit. But back on the big data, 84% of Gen Y professionals would consider banking with a tech giant. So the service in the banking world sucks so much that they would prefer to deal with somebody else. This was pre-Royal Commission. Post-Royal Commission, we're not sure whether that has increased. But let's have a look at what's happening in the US. Right. So this is data from a Lend.edu survey. This one's a little bit more updated, March 2018. And I did this in a session where I talked about why we should be worried about FANG being Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, figuring out a way to enter into our world, because these guys have the customer experience thing down pat. They asked them a question. Their consumers said they were open to banking with Amazon, even if it came with a fee. So there's some data that we're going to have a look at here. First thing that was really interesting to me, while our whole industry is still talking about accumulators and maybe at best splitting Gen X's and Gen Ys, Amazon splits Gen Ys into young millennials and old millennials. So understand the psychology of a big global business that has massive brand recognition, maybe not so much in Australia yet, but we all know Australia follows the US bell curve in terms of technology and customer experience and interacting with these brands. Why are they splitting a Gen Y population into young millennials and old millennials. Clearly, they think there are market segments here for them to work with. The thing that we want to focus on is open an Amazon account in addition to my current account. So Amazon's smart enough to go, are we going to try and get the whole thing? Are we going to try and get you to psychologically shift away completely from your current bank? Or are we just going to try and get our foot in the door? You guys get an account with us in addition to what you've already got, and then we'll go after growing our, using an old banking term, share of wallet, and we're going to start to put more products and services. Down the bottom, what they were going to throw into the mix, but for a fee of between $5 to $10 a month, included basic checking account services, so transactions here, plus cell phone damage protection, ID theft protection, roadside assistance, travel insurance, and product discounts. Now, this stuff doesn't exist in Australia yet, but this is where it's heading, because if the big banks don't do it, these other guys will come in. Now, Amazon, and I think it was Google, actually started to form a joint venture with one of the big American banks, and my slide data is not in front of me, so I don't want to say who it is in case I get it wrong, but these guys have already started to do this. And look at the data, 45% of customers would use Amazon as their primary bank account. Nearly half would use it for savings, half would use it for personal loans, and 30% would use it for a mortgage. So if you think about what X's and Y's want from an advice offer and the reasons why they might seek advice, and you start to paint a picture of the data of why is Amazon bothering to look at this stuff? Why don't they just stay to selling crappy products that nobody really needs online? Why would they go after this? Clearly, financial services, and there's data everywhere that talks about intergenerational wealth transfer in Australia from the retirees and the baby boomers. It's going to be in the trillions, right? This is an enormous amount of wealth that's going to transfer. They're doing it because the rest of the market has not woken up to the fact that this is where all the wealth is transferring to, and this is why we've got to build an offer that's appealing to them, because the current product being advice for Gen X and Gen Y, it doesn't work. It's like a smelly old yellow taxi. They're not interested in it anymore, and that's the reason why they're not taking it up. So if we are going to look after them, what do we got to give them? So let's start with, where are they starting? What are they doing now to improve their financial world? So 74% of the Gen Ys, this is back to the KPMG Banking on the Future report, 74% of Gen Y professionals are still going old school and using spreadsheets to manage their finances. Now I've got Lamb sitting in front of you. You're clearly a Gen Y. You're a early Gen Y, not a late Gen Y.
Yeah.
Do you use a spreadsheet, or do you use a money tool to do your stuff?
A bit of both.
A bit of both?
A bit of both. Excel's definitely still an important part.
Yeah. So Liam's a perfect example. I reckon everyone has a bit of an old school and a new school, and this gives us a really big opportunity as financial advisors, because we can start with something really simple with them and then maybe evolve that over time into something a little bit more complex that actually gives them a bit more information around what's going on in their world. Because only 19% of them are using their bank provided app. Now I know the big four, one of them in particular, spent a bucket load of money rehashing and relaunching their, let's call it spend type, tracking type thing. And you guys know who I'm talking about. But Johnny Average and Wendy Average are not using it. Now they're either not using it because the thing sucks, or they're either not using it because they can't be bothered. I reckon it's a combination, plus they don't trust the banks as far as they could kick them in some instances, so they don't want to give them more data than what they've already got on them. But the fact that 75% of them are doing this means there's an opportunity for us to help them. Because if they're doing it, it means they need help. Some of them might not want help from us. Some of them might just want help from a program, but I think a lot of them do. So let's go back to our ING research, and I'm going to start showing you what we do in a second, right? But we need to keep building the case for, if the opportunity is big enough and we want to keep the Amazons of the world at bay, and we want to build an offer that's actually appealing to them, what do they want? We know they're in there tracking their spending, and they're trying to use spreadsheets to keep on top of what's going on, but what else do they want? So ING, back to that data, ask them, What do they want from us? What are the expected outcomes from working with advisors? Now here, interestingly enough, in this ING research, they didn't say just financial advisors equals authorised representatives, financial advisors. They allowed the Gen Ys and the X's that they researched to use their own definition of what a financial advisor is. So what's also in here could be a mortgage broker, it could be an accountant, it could be a bank manager, it could be a money coach, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it doesn't matter. It is somebody that they deemed to be giving them advice around money or giving them advice around finances. And the two things that screamed out more than anything else was goals and savings. Now, as much as I love Netwealth, as all of you do, because you're on the call, and Netwealth's one of the preferred platforms of our current financial planning business, the little dip in the middle there, number 4, was investment management. Now, if you think logically, if a Gen Y or a Gen X, maybe go on the Ys in particular, if they've got 25, 30 grand in super, and that is their whole investment universe, how much value do you think you really can add, and how much value do you think they think you're going to add if part of your value proposition to them is around investment management? So clearly not. The data says to us there that they're not worried about that. What they are worried about is helping us work out what our goals are and helping us work out how much money we can save to get to said goals. So what are the goals of our Gen X's and Gen Ys? Well, if we believe KPMG again, and we go very stereotypical, and this is pretty surface level stuff, right? We're saying that all Gen X's just want properties, and all Gen Ys, so you can tell how old this is, because if it was an updated slide, it would have, they'd be Apple AirPods, wouldn't they? Mm-hmm. There'd be no, those old school connections. Gen Ys, it's all about lifestyle. Now, the reality is, as we've all gotten older, our X's have gotten older, our Ys have gotten older, that this stuff has evolved. And the needs and the goals of an X and a Y is so much broader now than just help me manage my lifestyle and help me manage my property. Help me get into the property market. Help me have more holidays. There's more stuff that they actually want help with. So I'm going to show you now some of what we've done inside Experience Wealth to actually build an offer that is based on what it is they actually want help with. And Liam, at any stage, if there's any questions that you think are relevant, you'll let me know. But before we do that, you guys have got to have a process for determining what goes into your value stack, what you're actually going to put on the table for your Gen X and your Gen Y clients. And it's more than just the products that you offer. Think back to what I just said about what Amazon's doing with customer experience, adding in some other different things. Think back to, God, Netflix, Uber, there's Spotify, Stan, everything's flipped. It's not just about the product anymore. It's about the product that you've got, the way that they engage with that product, which is your services, and then the tech stack and the solution that you're using to bring that product to market. So you've got to think about this, and then what's the cost that they're going to pay or they're willing to pay for that combination of products, services, and solutions. And what I want you guys to consider from a Gen XY point of view, in addition, so I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, I'm not saying get rid of traditional financial planning. What I'm saying is consider adding in goal planning and money coaching, given what we've seen from that big level data and what we've seen in Experience Wealth for the last 10 years. In 10 years, we have never had a client refer another client, and that client, the prospective client, has come in and said, I just want help around super and investments or superannuation and insurance. 99% of the time it is help us work out how much money we've got and get it sorted, help us work out what our goals are and what we actually want to do, and then put a plan in place to get to that. And yeah, while you're at it, figure out the superannuation and the insurance and the investment stuff. You've got to start somewhere different. For us, especially the younger ones, they didn't know what they didn't know. So whilst they might have a high level understanding of their goals in terms of what they think they want to do, what they don't have is a process to narrow down from the goals that they actually think about and talk about to the stuff that they're actually going to do. So what I'm showing you now is the updated 2019 version of the Experience Wealth Goal Planning session. Now you can see there that I've labelled us as money and mortgage coaches, and that's because as of the 1st of July, in full transparency, Experience Wealth is getting out of the financial planning game. We are, with money and mortgages, and goal planning has become such an integral part of what we do that it's what we've decided to focus on exclusively. We've entered into a JV with a financial planning firm that we've known for a really long time. And these guys are guns at financial planning, so they're going to do that part. And all we're going to do with our clients is money and mortgages. We are 95% of the way through the client conversations and saying, guys, this is all we're going to do going forward. And the good news is, to date, none of our clients have said they want to leave us because we're not doing financial planning anymore. None of our clients have said they want to leave us because we're partnering in a JV. From their point of view, as long as the best person to do the job is doing the job and we make it easy for them to work together, they're happy. So the reason why I'm sharing that with you guys is to say, look, I think from a younger demographic, from a Y and an X, yes, financial planning is important, but this other stuff is important as well, because if it wasn't, as soon as I gave them the opportunity to leave, they'd go with the financial planners and they'd sack us. But that's clearly not happening. In fact, the only person that's been sacked so far is one of our clients who said they don't need financial planning anymore, but they're happy to stay with the money coaching. So from a goal planning session, your objective from a client point of view is to help them move the conversation forward from this is what we think we want to do to this is what we're actually going to do. So building a structured process in an actual meeting with the clients, not just leaving it in a fact find. If the only goal planning you do with your clients is either in an online or an offline, God, I hope it's not offline, paper-based fact find, you are missing the point. This stuff is so valuable from a client's point of view. You should charge for it. Now, it took me the courage of about 7 years before I actually charged for this thing. I have no idea why it took me so long. We charged $220 for our goal planning session. It is not a lot of money, but we've had zero pushback on that. Yes, you might get a few people that don't go forward, but for us, we see that as a bit of a tire kicker exercise. Someone's not willing to pay us 220 bucks, they're not going to pay us, you know, 1,000, 1,500, 2 grand for the setup fees, and they're definitely not going to pay our ongoing fee of 220 bucks a month as well. So your objective here is to work them through. Now, yes, this still says financial advisor because until the 30th of June, I am a financial advisor, and come the 1st of July, we'll change this to money coach. So go through a values exercise with them. Use something, the reason why you're doing a values exercise is to give them a way to make a decision around the goal over and above what it's actually going to cost. Everybody knows people choose goals based on what's important to them and what they want to do and their priorities, and then they'll do what they can afford. So here it's around walking them through a process of prioritization. What are their top 5 shared values? Now, whether it's 5, whether it's 7, whether it's 3, it doesn't actually matter. What matters is you're giving them an opportunity to get on the same page. Sometimes they might not have actually had this conversation. They might have talked about the goal, but they haven't talked about why they want to do the goal. Our experience in having done this with our clients before, so many times, 100+ times over the 10 years, so much more than that. You can tell whether a relationship with you is going to work based on how well this session goes. If they're open and honest with each other and they're open and honest with you, then it's going to work really well. If they get to this point and you can feel that it's all sort of superficial and they're not really on the same page, they're not going to go forward. But the ones that do go forward will then move to the next stage. And the next stage is taking what we call a wish list, which is if money wasn't an obstacle, these are all the things we'd like to do, and moving it onto a goals board. Now, this is here's one I've prepared earlier, goals board. But what we're actually showing here is the clients adding in their goals, moving them from their wish list onto their goals board, and then prioritizing it into different time frames, short term, medium term, and long term. And then they're actually prioritizing it from a want to have and a must have. Now, when they do that and they control this and they move it all around, guys, and this thing's done on PowerPoint. So this is not amazing technology that's doing this. What we're getting them to do is stress test the goals by adding the values back into it. So forcing them to say, these goals relate to these values. The reason that you're doing that, again, you're giving them another way to measure the value of a goal over and above what the cost of the goal actually is. From here, they would move into an action plan. And the action plan is, over the next 12 months, which of these goals are you actively going to contribute money to on a monthly basis, excuse me, or which of these goals are you going to reserve or put some of your savings, pre-existing savings towards? It's about helping them move the needle forward to commit. Over 10 years, it's amazing the number of times that I've seen clients, brand new clients, prospective clients come in who they become clients of ours, and then they take action on a big goal within weeks of seeing us. But the funny thing is, before they saw us, they were already in a financial position to be able to do it, but they hadn't committed and they sat on the fence for 2 years. And I reckon part of the reason why they do that is the fear of making a poor decision, but part of that is also not actually having a way to make sure that they're jointly agreeing on what it is they want to do. So part of it is goal planning, and any of you that have seen me talk before, and some of you might have, you know that we're all about cash flow, and clearly the money management stuff is a huge part of what we're doing going forward, given we're in the process of getting rid of our financial planning business, so you'd hope we're actually pretty good at this stuff. Just having a drink, guys, sorry about that. So we built a money management program. Now, we did this 9 or 10 years ago, we started. And we did it before there was any technology. So it was old school, it was Excel spreadsheets, manually downloading clients' CSV account transactions, and then putting it into a spreadsheet and pushing it back out to them. And it's evolved to effectively the 100% core business in Experience Wealth now. And the reason why it's evolved to that is our clients get enormous value from this, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So if you are going to if you are going to go after the Ys and the X's, in particular the Ys, where 95% of the goals that they want to achieve will be met out of monthly savings, not out of existing savings. Think about things like buying a property, paying it off, starting a family, saving up a maternity leave fund, having bigger holidays, doing all of this stuff. It all comes from how well they manage their money. If you don't have an offer around money management for your Gen Ys in particular, and even your Gen X's, in my opinion, you don't have an offer for Gen Ys and Gen X's. And that's the reason why I think most Gen X's and Gen Ys don't work with financial planners today, is because they haven't built an offer for them. The flip side is if you do build it, you can actually add a lot of value. So you're using things like budgeting with them. You're giving them scenarios and comparisons against peer groups and how their numbers stack up. You're giving them a way to be able to make a measurement and a judgment call on what they want their budget to look like. So this is just another example of a scenario that we modeled with a client that said they wanted to purchase an investment property, and initially when they gave us their budget, it was bullshit, which meant that sorry, I should have asked if I'm allowed to swear, too late, we're done. Their spending ratio was sitting down at 8%. Now, all the Experience Wealth clients allow us to track their data and then be able to push it back out to our clients anonymized in the form of 3 peer groups: singles, couples, and families. And when we compared this brand new client, excuse me, with their peer group, they were targeting an 8% spending number against 22. Now, we know that's crap. There is just no clients that spend that little. So we could actively work with them and say, guys, look, we think you need to adjust this number up. And it's funny, when we started to push, these guys had a business, or they have a business, and it turns out the business was funding a lot of the spending. And if we then turn it into real numbers, obviously that spending figure goes up. But the whole point of this is that you've got a program and a process that allows them to set a real budget, not just some made up thing. So track this back to that starting point around 75% of Gen Ys are trying to manage their own money using a spreadsheet. This is just a spreadsheet on a supplements program that's actually gone to another level. You're walking them through stages of accepting their budget, getting awareness of what it costs to be them, and then pushing reporting. Now, I've got MoneySoft up here, but there's countless examples of financial planning fintech that you can use. We've got MoneySoft because we've got our own version of it. which we built to align with our categorization and mapping. And I know so many advisors out there are using either MoneySoft or My Prosperity. I think you guys have got a feed in with My Prosperity as well.
Yeah, we just actually had a question there on your thoughts on My Prosperity for this sort of stuff.
We're going to reserve that one to the end, because once we open Pandora's box, I can't close it in the middle. So I'll absolutely answer the question around MoneySoft versus My Prosperity. There's other ones, there's Cash Deck, there's Xero, there's a bunch of this stuff, right? Whichever fintech you use doesn't actually matter. What matters is you've got a program that you then, you then use the technology to deliver your program instead of using the standard reporting that comes out of the technology and then using that as the basis for building your client engagement model. So think about what information and insights you want to give the clients on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. Understand what your objective is. What are they trying to get out of this data, and what are you trying to get them to do? Obviously, the longer it is, you want longer term data, but on a weekly basis, you're just trying to modify behavior. There's 3 or 4 spending categories that if the clients manage, they'll hit their spending and savings target, and if they don't, they won't. So maybe highlight visibility around those categories. On a quarterly basis, pull the lens back a bit. How have you gone over the last quarter? How are you tracking year to date? Let's check back in with your peer group and see how you're going, not only against your own budgets, but against everybody else in your world, just to help them analyze their progress in different ways. The other thing around Gen X's and Gen Ys, and it's a really interesting time to be doing this, because the logos that you see there, they're not the final Experience Wealth logos, but we're in the middle of rebranding. And the reason why we're doing that is we're trying to update and become, stay relevant with our clients. And we're talking about us really embracing and becoming an unapologetic, real money coach. And we're not apologizing that we're getting out of financial planning. We're not apologizing when we talk to our clients to help them make smarter decisions around their money. We're not apologizing when a client comes in and they're drunk and some idiotic lender has given them a $1.4 million borrowing power, but when we run their numbers with them, they're going to go broke if they spend more than $800,000 on a loan. We're not apologizing that we're going to have that conversation with them. So what we're trying to do here is actually build a brand around what we want to stand for, and then execute that through not only our offer, but our language. Because I think, unfortunately, quite often what happens now is the industry, to get a Gen X&Y offer, basically all they do is freshen up their logo and they get an Insta account. And 5 years ago when I did this presentation, it was a Facey account, but now it's definitely an Insta account. And the fact that I call it Insta instead of IG shows that I am a Gen X and not a Gen Y. So what should you be doing if you're doing more than just getting your Insta account? By the way, you need this stuff. We suck at it, and part of our authenticity that we're trying to work towards is getting better at this. But at least we're trying. Your products. So understand what they need. Have a goal planning session. Have a money management program with them. Build out action plans for things that they actually care about, like starting or expanding their family, navigating childcare in school. If you don't understand how the childcare subsidy that the government provides works, go and figure it out. If you don't know how paid parental leave works, if you don't know how things like education bonds work, or early retirement plans work, or the new changes to borrowing, where APRA's moving to more of that 2% floating buffer over the standard 7.25 or 7.5% servicing testing. If you don't have an internal view on what a long-term interest rate is that you should use for borrowing with clients, you need to develop all of this stuff. Because if you don't have it, it shows that you've actually half shown up to this market, because you've cared enough to have a go, but you haven't cared enough to get to the extent that you really understand what they want help with, because these are the decisions that they're struggling with every single day. And absolutely then offer financial planning, traditional financial planning services, but do it as an add-on. Don't do it as your core. Services is about understanding how they want to buy your products. So have plans and packages, but they've got to be really clear and easy to understand. Look at how Netflix package up their offers. Look how Stan do it. Look how Spotify does it. Look at how everything's moved to clear, easy to understand. You pay this, you get this. If your fee model is opaque, if you struggle to explain your fee model to your clients, they are not going to be clients, prospective ones. And the hardest thing is they're going to struggle to explain it to other clients for referrals. Understand that not everybody wants a long-term relationship with you, so don't just bet the farm on getting ongoing relationships, but the vast majority will. And this one is a bit of an elephant in the room. The less number of conflicts you have, the more number of referrals you're going to get. The more conflicted your model is, the less number of referrals you're going to get, and that's just the new reality in a post-Royal Commission world. Solutions is about bringing products and services to them on their terms. So social stalking, be authentic and consistent. Understand that when somebody refers you to a friend or colleague of theirs, they have got their phone out and they've already started cyber stalking. So everywhere that you show up online, you don't have to have the best image in the world, but make sure it's consistent. If you want to work with Gen X's and Gen Ys, if I search your LinkedIn profile, don't lead off with you're a retirement planning expert or you're a financial planning expert. Talk about the stuff that's relevant to them. Make it easy for them to find out that you are not full of crap. So that means on your website, on your Insta account, on your Facebook account, you have to have at least talked once or twice about the thing that's relevant to them. Have an opinion on childcare, have an opinion on paid parental leave, have an opinion on the new changes to lending, have an opinion on whether or not the Australian property, not the market itself, but whether or not the Australian population in general is borrowing too much money. Have an opinion on schooling. So you need to walk into their world. Make it really easy to get started. So I know most of you are probably using online calendar booking software by this stage, but if you are not, you need to get it. It is the #1 thing that was a big driver, I suppose, on easing the onboarding process for us. We have most of our appointments now booked outside of work hours. Now we have our appointments set to some have inside work hours and some of them happen just outside. But the booking of the appointment, I get appointments getting booked at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night. Why? Because Gen Ys and Gen X's work. And some of them have young kids and some of them have slightly older kids, but they do not have time to think about booking appointments with you during the day. Some of them might, but if it's really easy, excuse me, if it's easy for them to do, they'll do it. They don't want to call your office at 8 o'clock at night. Well, actually, they probably would like to call your office to make an appointment, but they're not going to do that because you guys are going to be home or doing whatever it is that you want to do. But you need to make it easy for them to be able to book that appointment. So use Calendly. And I know we're today hanging out on GoTo, but use something like Zoom. 70 to 80% of our client appointments now are done online. To such a point that we're actually looking at selling our office or leasing it. So anyway, when anybody wants a beautiful office in Port Melbourne, let me know, it's all yours. But I used to think it was all about, you know, where you were located and how good it was fit out. Now, we're in the office once every 3 weeks. Maybe new clients want to see you face to face, but once they've met you once online, if your video quality is good enough and your audio quality is good enough, you can do a modern version of an in-home appointment, which is their home and your home or wherever, and it's easy for them, right place for you, right time. But bring some old school concepts to life using new school tech. We do a lot of meetings with clients using Excel to go through their numbers because we drag the data out of Xero or MoneySoft or MyProsperity, and we're modeling some cash flow scenarios. What if our income changes? I've got a meeting with a client tonight. Old school, I'm going to their house, they've just bought a new place, so I'm going to go and see that, which we help them do because we help them understand how much they could afford. And we're going to go through some Excel with them, but use some new school tech. You can do that online, you know, without it actually diminishing the experience. In a lot of ways, it makes it even better. So guys, as I said, I want to help you get started on this. So there's a link there. Hopefully it's in the chat box as well. And we're going to go to questions now. This is our goal planning session. As I said, it's a PowerPoint template. It's a bit big to download because there's some fairly chunky images in there, but please use it as a template. Please change the logo and please change the disclaimers and the branding. But apart from that, the rest of it is yours. and I'd love to answer any questions that we've got. But thanks for hanging with me today.
All right, thanks, Steve, and thanks for that insight into Gen X and Y. That PowerPoint template as well, we will include in the post-webinar email, which we'll get in the next week. Steve, as you correctly pointed out, I am a Gen Y. And something that really resonated with me in your presentation was the fear of making the wrong decision. I think that's especially true with myself and my peer group. You know, we've all our savings and everything. I think there is a big concern that we make the wrong decision, buy a house that goes down in value, makes a bad investment decision, that life's over for us. Yep. So someone to provide some comfort and security and help along the way is huge. And there's also a lot of other misconceptions out there among our peer group, such as the ability to go on to save for a home and travel at the same time is impossible. This can't be done, when in fact, with the right solutions and strategy, it can. So it's all out there.
I think it's about trade-offs as well. I think, and that's not a world that is exclusive to your Ys. The reality is, if you want to spend more money on travel, or if you want to increase your lifestyle, then the money that's available to save, or the money that's available to pay off the debt, or even just rent a place, it's not going to be there. So it's less, for us, it's less about, as a coach, coming in over the top and saying you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this. It's more giving them real numbers in real time to make real decisions around what they want to do, and educating them and helping them come to the conclusion that this is what we want life to look like now. This is what we want life to look like then. And to your point around making bad decisions, it's about trying to actually take them into that future world before they've made the decision rather than after. So if it's buying a property, showing them what they're going to look like when they have to start paying a mortgage off, showing them how long it's going to take them to pay the mortgage off. If they want to do it in 20 years instead of 30 years, show them how much they need to save each month as an extra repayment to get there. Show them what's going to happen if interest rates go up by 1.5% to 2.5%. Show them what happens when they go from 2 incomes down to 1 because they might be starting a family. Yep. Showing them what happens when mum or dad only wants to go back to work 3 days a week. What happens when they get into childcare, how the childcare subsidy affects all of that stuff. Showing them as best as possible what future world looks like, so that we talk about lifestyle proofing all of your decisions. And that, whether that's property, whether it's jobs, whether it's travel, it doesn't matter. If you help them see what it's going to look like, their confidence factor goes through the roof, because they know that they've stress tested that decision 7 ways from Sunday, and that's what helps them commit. Instead of just using maybe money or going, oh no, in theory, this should be okay.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. We'll move on to some questions. Please continue to send them through, and we'll get as many as you can. An interesting question here from Scott, who thinks, do you think Gen Y's needs, wants, and attitudes will change as they become older? Absolutely. Everyone's needs, wants, and attitudes change as they get older and grow up, and it's 100% life stage driven. It's not necessarily always age driven. My beautiful wife, Melissa, is sick of me telling this story, especially in a public environment, but we had our first child at 25, 26, which was a little bit earlier than we anticipated. Huge difference between pre-pregnant Steve and Mel, 25-year-olds, and post-pregnant Steve and Mel, 25-year-olds. Same age, our version of compare the pair. Now, the psychology around what we do with our money when we know that there's not, the only people we've got to worry about is us, versus how we manage our money when we've got to worry about somebody else, is completely different. And that, whilst, yes, as they get older, some of these things will happen by default, but it's more life stage dependent. I think what Gen Y has in particular that is unique relative to the X's, like me, we've been around longer. We're used to having shit service and terrible experiences, so we just put up with it a lot more. Gen Ys, there is this growing area of zero tolerance for poor quality experience. And so financial services is not immune to that. So I think from a financial planning, or from a financial coaching, or a money coaching, or whatever your business is that you are in, don't start with a traditional financial planning model and then try and wrap a Gen Y
customer experience around it, start the other way. Go, if I was a client of mine, based on what they want help with, what do my products look like, how do they want to interact, how do I want to interact with the service providers that I work with, and then how do I make that thing a compliant process, not how do I take a financial planning process that is overlaid with a compliance regime and then try and make it the most client experience or client friendly as I can, and see how you go when you do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely true. Experiences are what we live for. A few questions now back on what we said we discussed earlier about My Prosperity and MoneySoft, and any preferences you may have.
Well, clearly I have to disclose that we have our own version of MoneySoft. MoneySoft are one of our foundation partners in the advice movement. We love the guys over there, right? And that's from a budgeting and a cash flow point of view. So the difference between the two, both of them work. MoneySoft is a budgeting and cash flow piece of software that has then gone and added things like goal planning and other stuff around it. Whereas I think My Prosperity, budgeting and cash flow is one of their components of their offer, but it's not the core component of their offer. And I don't think I'm speaking out of school, but you could obviously go and ask the guys that. I think personally, obviously MoneySoft is better, but again, everybody's got to be their own judge. I stress with this, and that's obviously I've been coaching budgeting and cash flow for, teaching other advisors how to do this for 6 or 7 years now. Start with what you want your offer to look like, and then find the technology that delivers to your offer. Don't use the technology to build your offer out. It'd be the same analogy as saying, we're going to use X plan or coin, and we're going to go and sign up to that. And then based on how that thing runs, we're now going to go and build our financial planning process. Nobody would do that. So from a money management and a money coaching point of view, treat it the same way. Build your offer, know what you want to do, and then find the tech that supports your best offer.
Yep, good advice there. And another question just on, I think it was Calendly. Was that the
Calendly?
Calendly.
Yeah. So Calendly, it's online calendar booking software. So you've got Schedule Once is another one. We did use Time Trade, but we got rid of it because it was garbage. Sorry, Time Trade, but it is. Calendly's really easy. You can block out, when you want appointments to be made. It's one click and they're straight in. You can have standard text for each calendar type, calendar booking type. The thing for us that I love on it, you just copy the link, send it to them in an SMS or whatever. They click it on their phone. It opens for mobile. It's really easy for them to choose the time. And so it's an integral part of a Gen X&Y offer. And we're not the only ones. If you want to go to a doctor's now, you book online appointments. Like, yes, if you want to go old school and have a phone appointment, but that's a human that you're playing phone tag with them. You've got to try and coordinate 3 different calendars. Then somebody changes and reschedules, and then the whole thing moves around again. This thing will automatically reschedule. There's a link in there. They'll reschedule appointment. They'll go straight to the next available or whatever they want. So Calendly's one. The other one you want to look at is Schedule Once.
Cool. We have a question here. A listener said that they've recently seen some data that shows that clients who go through, money coaching models and budgeting and what have you, they tend to last around 3 years before they move on. Is that something you've found? Or
no. So I think, and again, I can only speak from our own experience. Our persistency rate is very, very good, or lapse rate is very, very low. I think the psychology is, it's more around if you, Field of Dreams type stuff. Gen X's will know what I'm talking about. Gen Y's, just search, it's probably on Netflix or Stan, whichever one of your subscriptions you've got. If you build it, they will come, right? And it's the same thing. So money management becomes a core of what they're doing. When they're in a phase of life where they're changing or they're wanting to change, jobs, homes, family status, incomes, and their budgeting and their cash flow and their money management is an integral part of them understanding whether or not they can do that. The value of a money management program being the information, and the money coach being the girl that provides insights behind that information goes up. Where your where your value prop around money management goes down is when they get to that holding pattern, which is typically between, let's say, 45 and maybe 50 something, right? Where kids are done, not having any more. School fees locked in, not changing that anytime soon. No more renovations, no more upgrading the home. It is literally rinse and repeat. Earn money, spend money. Don't spend all of it, pay the bloody mortgage off. Have a half decent lifestyle. There is a risk at that stage that a money coaching offer on its own will lower value. That's where actually a financial planning conversation kicks in and adds more value, because they might be getting closer to now saying, well, are we better off paying more money off the home loan, or are we better off doing a debt recycling strategy, or are we better off doing either salary sacrifice or personal deductible contributions into super? And that's where I think you can start to evolve with the clients. But personally, we've not seen the 3-year rule doesn't apply.
Yeah. And we've got a few questions about this actually. If you don't mind sharing your fee model, and also if you're a financial advisor doing this stuff, what's an unreasonable amount of time to spend per client?
Okay, so let's go fee model. We're fully transparent. So $995 is what we charge for a money management plan. That's a one-off fee. We charge $220 one-off fee for a goal planning session. And then on an ongoing basis, we have 3 packages. So $33 a month for do-it-yourself, which is just we give them the technology and we wish them the best of luck. We have a video money coach, which is $110 a month. And then we have personal money coaches, which is $220 a month. A video money coach, they get all their budgeting cash flow done weekly, monthly, but every quarter they get a video, which is a one-way report from us, basically like a personal highlights package. Hey, Sam and Sally, Steve from Experience Wealth here. Just want to go through your numbers over the last 3 months and let you know how you've gone. Personal money coach, you're now adding in more time. So conversations, meeting with clients, things like that. We charge $500 per goal for a goal action plan. And then obviously you got your financial planning fees, which is in there as well. Sorry, the other question was?
As a financial advisor, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time to spend on this type of stuff?
Look, again, it's how long's a piece of string, right? But you should be able to, for the fees that we've charged, we believe that's profitable. Yes, we have mortgage broking as well. And obviously mortgage broking has its own commission model that's attached to that. We're praying that eventually the market will evolve to a point where we can have wholesale mortgages and just add a fee or charge a fee. But at the moment, we've got to run in the commission model world. If you're efficient, you should be able to do goal planning and prep in 60 to 90 minutes. Money management, same thing, 60 to 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours per client per month. You should be able to do the technology plus, the tracking for around about look, we've got an outsourced service which we charge, where we do work on behalf of other advisors, and we can do that for $33 per month. So I think your benchmark that's the number, somewhere between $30 and $50 per client per month in staff time to do all the money tracking. And then obviously you've got to add your technology cost on top of that and your overheads and things like that. So again, it's such an open-ended question. It depends how much time you're adding to your offer.
Cool. We've got time for just one final question. We know you were very active in your marketing and promotions and doing videos, podcasts.
I was, yeah.
And all sort. What did you find the most effective for getting Gen Y and X's attention and engagement?
It's really interesting because I need to get better at marketing. I'm terrible at it. 95% of Experience Wealth clients are referrals by existing clients. So attention is something that we've been terrible at. The thing that we're trying to do going forward when we finally exit out of the financial planning side and I've got time to be able to breathe and do marketing again, and Brett in my team is integral in this, is to try and get a consistent operating rhythm around what we're sending out on a regular basis. So trying to do stuff weekly, monthly, quarterly. Video, understand where they are. They're on Insta. The Ys are more on Insta than they are on Facey. but don't try and reinvent the wheel. So if you're going to do video is the best, I still think, but video with captions baked in so that they have to read it, because most of them won't put the sound on.
Yeah. Keep it short.
Keep it short, but then don't be afraid of giving them long form stuff as well. So one thing we're looking at launching this year, we're actually going to build a DIY money coaching course, which we're going to sell at a lower price point and use it as a paid sort of business development distribution thing. So the answer is we don't know everything. Everything works better than doing nothing. The thing that I would say more than anything else, it doesn't matter which platform you're on, talk about the stuff that is relevant to them. That's what they want more than anything else. Don't talk about stuff that just doesn't matter to them. And then they'll forgive you for not being really good at Facey or IG, because, geez, they've forgiven me for the last 10 years. So if it works for me, it'll work for you.
Well, thanks, Steve, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And apologies to everyone who asked a question where we just didn't have time to get to.
If anyone does have questions, you can find me on LinkedIn, or I'm sure these guys will give you their details. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you've got. Just stalk me and I will help.
No worries. Well, thanks again, Steve. Fascinating insight into the Gen X and Y market. It's definitely there to be taken for listeners on the line. Just a recap here that there was one CPD point, or there is one CPD point allocated to this webinar. If you're online for more than 30 minutes, we will be sending you an email within the next week with those points, and it will also have a recording of this session. And finally, a couple of other initiatives that you may be interested in. Our portfolio construction webinar series. That's happening. We'll include a link in the email. That's just a discussion on SMSFs and if they're still a good option for your clients. And that's with our very own Nigel Smith from our technical services team, also CPD allocated. And tomorrow we are launching our third Advise Tech report. And this report is based on the survey results from over 330 financial advisors and shares the key technology trends happening in the industry and what Advise Tech the best businesses are using. So keep an eye out for that in your inbox. Steve, thank you again. Thank you again, listeners. Have a good day. Hope you find this session valuable, and we hope to see you next time.